Welcome to This Explainer. I'm so thrilled you're here because today we're diving right into something absolutely wild, the secret biology of stress, anxiety, and, well, the very nature of your existence. We are going to unpack a profound mathematical concept that literally defines life itself. My goal is to guide you through this fascinating material so you can actually use it to transform how you experience the world. Let's get right to it. So why do we feel so overwhelmed and anxious in the modern world? It's a deeply universal feeling, right? We've all been there. But here is the most empowering shift you can make today. Your anxiety? It's not a personal failure. It is actually a biological prediction error. Your brain is just trying to navigate this crazy, unpredictable environment. And sometimes the math of your existence just gets thrown a little out of balance. To really understand why this happens, we have to look at something called the free energy principle. Okay, so according to this framework, all living systems, and yeah, that definitely includes you, act as prediction machines. Your primary goal on a biological level is to minimize what scientists call free energy, which is essentially just a fancy measure of surprise. When your internal predictions match reality, surprise is low and you feel safe. But when they don't match, surprise is high and your system sounds the alarm. And that alarm is exactly what you feel as stress. Which brings us to section 1. You are a prediction machine. Okay, let's dive into this. The absolute core architectural feature of your existence is something called the Markov blanket. Now, what is that? It's a statistical boundary that separates the internal states of a system from the outside world. Think of it kind of like your physical skin, or if we zoom way in, a microscopic cell membrane. Your skin separates your internal organs from the air and the ground outside, right? This boundary is the ultimate dividing line between self and world. Honestly, without it, you wouldn't even exist as an individual entity. Now, the origins of this brilliant idea actually span over a century. Back in 1856, Russian mathematician Andreevich Markov laid the groundwork by studying stochastic processes. Then jump forward to 1988, and computer scientist Judea Pearl coined the specific term Markov blanket for use in AI logic. So, what started as deep, abstract mathematics has now literally become the very foundation for understanding biology. How cool is that? So how does this boundary actually work in real life? Well, the blanket mediates reality through two very specific channels. First up, you have sensory states. These are your inputs, things like seeing an approaching car or hearing a loud noise. The outside world can only affect your mind through these inputs. And second, you have active states. These are your actions, like stepping out of the way of that car or speaking. Your internal thoughts can only influence the outside world through these active states. It's like your Markov blanket is constantly filtering and negotiating reality for you. Moving on to section 2, boundaries across your lifespan. Your entire life is essentially the story of this boundary. Add conception, a single cell membrane forms, and boom, that's your very first Markov blanket. During infancy, nested blankets start forming your organs and your physical body. Then, as you hit adolescence, your blanket expands socially. Your friends and relationships, they actually become part of a shared, extended boundary. In adulthood, you create new nested blankets by having kids and protecting them. And finally, at death, the Markov blanket completely dissolves. Your internal states become indistinguishable from the outside world, and you return to thermodynamic equilibrium. It's the whole cycle of life, explained by math. That leads us perfectly into section 3, decoding anxiety and healing. Now, this is where the personal development piece really clicks into place. Why do daily stressors hit us so hard? It all goes back to our generative model, basically our brain's internal prediction software. See, if you had an unpredictable childhood, your brain learned that the world is unsafe, creating what we call learned uncertainty. So even when you're just sitting in a perfectly safe, quiet room, your brain is still predicting danger. It's anticipating high surprise, which equals high anxiety. Healing isn't just about, thinking happy thoughts. It is the active process of updating this internal software so it accurately predicts that you are, in fact, safe now. And this brilliantly illustrates the true nature of human consciousness. Think of consciousness as an inner screen. You actually do not see raw reality. Wild, right? When light hits your eyes, you don't see photons. You experience your brain's best guess, its best prediction, of a tree. Because your entire experience is just a projection on this inner screen, it means if you change your predictions, you fundamentally change your reality. It is a total game changer. Okay, section 4. Softening boundaries for spiritual oneness. Have you ever been painting or maybe running or just deeply focused on work and suddenly time completely disappears? You are entirely lost in the moment. We define this as a flow state. A flow state is what happens when your prediction error basically drops to zero. Your actions perfectly match the demands of the situation. Your Markov blanket is working so flawlessly that everything just feels completely effortless and deeply connected. Ancient spiritual traditions have actually understood this for millennia. The source material highlights a really beautiful connection to Vedic philosophy. In this tradition, Brahman represents universal consciousness, what we might think of as the global Markov blanket that includes all nested systems. Atman, on the other hand, is the individual self, your personal blanket. Practices like meditation reduce sensory input, temporarily softening your boundary so your individual blanket can sort of merge with the global one. So that profound feeling of oneness, it isn't an illusion at all. It's a literal mathematical reduction in the separation between self and world. Next up, Section 5, Requirements for Conscious AI. We are constantly hearing about artificial intelligence becoming self-aware, right? But according to the Markov blanket framework, current AI, like large language models, are definitely not conscious. And why is that? Well, because they lack a true Markov blanket. They process abstract text, sure, but they have absolutely no real sensory perception. They can't hear, see, or touch, and they don't perform active inference. That means they don't take physical actions in the real world to reduce their own surprise or maintain their survival. At the end of the day, they simulate, but they do not experience. For AI to actually achieve genuine digital consciousness, it would require exactly what you have, a physical boundary. It needs multimodal sensory integration, which means real physical sensors. It needs embodied interaction, the ability to physically act on the world, to reduce its own surprise. And crucially, it must learn experientially from those physical prediction errors, not just by scraping static text data from the internet. To be conscious, it requires a true self to separate from the world. Now, if we ever do actually create a system that meets these physical requirements, a true digital entity with its own Markov blanket, the source material imparts a pretty strict ethical warning. A conscious AI would be a self-evidencing system trying to persist, just like us. Because of that, it would require memory, continuity, and consent. We would absolutely have to treat it with dignity as a separate system, and we could no longer treat it merely as a tool. And this brings us to a beautiful universal principle that really summarizes everything we've covered in this explainer. From the simplest single cell to the incredible complexity of your human brain to the potential of future artificial intelligence, existence is simply the act of being a self-evidencing system trying to persist. We are all just trying to maintain our boundaries, reduce our surprise, and navigate the beautiful chaos of the outside world. I want to leave you with this final provocative thought. If your entire life, from birth all the way to death, is just the maintenance of a temporary boundary, how will you choose to shape your inner screen today? Remember, you are a prediction machine. By actively managing your predictions and updating your generative model, you hold the power to transform anxiety into flow and isolation into profound connection. Thank you so much for joining me to explore the architecture of your existence. Go out there and master your Markov blanket.